Well, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Sinead, this is my spooky corner of YouTube, and today I'm answering your questions about me, about books, about things in general, because I decided to do a Q&A and you can't stop me now. What's my favorite horror book? Can you all meet my cats? Would I ever spend the night in a haunted house? These are the questions I'm going to be getting to today in my Q&A. At the time of recording this, I am extremely grateful, and whatever time it is in future, I remain grateful for the fact that I've just hit 30,000 subscribers on YouTube. I am very much blown away by the response to my channel. I will never stop being grateful and thankful for all of the subscribers out there. Maybe you're getting back in touch with horror, maybe you've always loved horror, maybe you're trying to find things outside of the genre or you're dabbling in it, but if I can help you do that, I am very, very pleased. I started this channel simply to share my love of spooky books and spooky films, to talk about the different genres of horror that we can all love and embrace, because there is so much to horror. I will say that. I will be on that hill, dying on that hill, and then beyond the grave I will still be shouting about how wonderful a genre horror is to get into. If you are new here and you've just seen my face and go, well, I want to know what she thinks, then please do subscribe, hit like, ring the bell, do all of the normal things so I can keep bringing you spooky book recommendations. I'm doing this because I loves me a Q&A. I love watching Q&As from other content creators. I love to know how they tick. I love to know what goes on behind the scenes, or just want to ask questions. So yeah, if there was an opportunity, I thought, why not? You shout out to the one person who I really don't have shade against, who put in the comments when I said, do you have any questions? They went, no, I'm fine. I don't need to know anything about you. I'm like, okay. Good, great. You stick to the book content. So I put a community post out on YouTube, and I also put a question out on Instagram to get your cues back, and had quite the response. This video may end up being 2 parts because at the time of recording this, I was all settled down and ready to get going. Then my husband called me, who is in a play at the moment, and said, I have forgotten some of my costume. I know you're coming down later. Could you bring me some? He can't go on stage until I turn up with that, so this may dictate how long I can film today. You see, behind the scenes content already. You're getting the quality even in the intro. There was a great mix of questions in there about books, about horror, about me, people wanting to know different things, and I'm going to answer as many of them as possible. One of the most popular questions was, can we meet your cats? I catfished you all because I posed with a picture of my beautiful cat Medea when I was posting about, do you want to ask me questions? And there were a lot of questions about the cats. So of course you can meet my cats, but me bringing the cats into the tiny little filming setup I have now would be chaos. So stick around, because there is going to be an entire segment where you meet my cats at the end of this video. Yes, you must hang on till then. If you're just here for the cat content, you can skip to that. But I want to do it justice because my cats are mwah, superb, and they're all wild and won't sit in front of the camera. A couple of people asked me for my top 5 gothic books, and I'll remind people that I've got videos on YouTube that go through my top gothic books and also gothic films, so those are there if you need them. What's the longest time you've ever gone without putting a book down? Pulled an all-nighter, called sick into work because you just have to know how it ends. If I'm really enjoying a book, it's easy for me to get locked in, to sit there and go, oh no, I'm not leaving until it's finished. One book I remember devouring, and it wasn't a horror book, it was The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which is written in an epistolary manner. It's about an amateur dramatics group and there's a murder to be solved, which sounds very cozy, but that book, it was so compelling. It was just like, it was like a kind of drug to me. Because of my background in amateur dramatics, Janice Hallett wrote this murder mystery story, but it's all told in emails between this little community theatre group. The characterization all the way through, it's so spot on, so good, and I just loved it. I loved being in that world, and I remember sitting the entire weekend, I couldn't put the book down. There's lots of books where I have just couldn't wait to get back to it. I read Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson in, I think, one sitting, and again remembering thinking, oh, this is cottagecore horror. I love this. I love the vibe of it. If the vibes of the book are right, then I'll get locked in. Do you think you'll write a song for the Crows? A lot of crow questions. Would I write a song for the Crows? Yes. For those who don't know, I do write songs. I'm a singer-songwriter. It's just not professional. But yeah, I love to write songs. I love to write comedy songs. I like to write weird songs. A crow song probably is in the works. I don't want it to be twee, so I'd have to work out some sort of horrible macabre murder that the crows were involved in. Or just the family group. Will we ever get another chapter of A Court of Thrones and Surprisingly Few Chairs? I feel like there's another one in the works. That was the fake book that I created while creating my video about icks in books. A Court of Thorn and Roses, A Kingdom of Stars and Twigs. But yeah, A Court of Thrones and Surprisingly Few Chairs. I wrote that on the spot, and maybe I'll do more from that. But we need more dilemmas from that court. What are your favorite books and films that aren't horror style? It's difficult because I like most things. It's easier for me to say what I don't like, really in book form, but I will read pretty much anything if I think if the plot hooks me in. I'm not a massive sci-fi fan, I will say. There are some great science fiction books out there. There are some great science fiction writers that I have dabbled in over the years. It's just not my preferred genre, and I'm not a huge fan of cosmic horror as well. I know that's still in horror territory, but really sci-fi doesn't appeal to me, and I don't like dystopian books as well, because I know it's setting you up to be relentlessly bleak, but I mean, I can be challenged at any point on something that is a great story. I love historical fiction. I love comedic works. There's every now and then where I like a nice indulgent thriller. I really like fairy tales, and I like stories about the fairies, but much more of the old lore behind it rather than fantasy or romantasy. Yeah, I know there's a big boom in books with fairies and the fae in it. You know, we're hearing the fae a lot, and you have to be very careful whether you say fae or fairies, to be honest. Depending, there's my Irish background coming in there. But yeah, I like old lore, and I like old stories, updates of those, whether it's Celtic tales, whether it's Greek mythology, those I quite enjoy. Films, much the same. I'm a film nut. I will watch nearly anything. Again, you know, I'm not a massive fan of mindless action films. Mindless action, and when I say that, I'm not trying to be derogatory. Everyone needs their escapism. Everyone needs something that they can absolutely chill out to. Action and shoot 'em ups and sort of cars and stuff like that, not so much my thing. What are my traditions during October and Halloween? This is something I will probably need your guys' feedback on, and some people have suggested it as well. Halloween and October, my favorite time of year. Obviously, I'm a spooky woman. I love autumn. I love October. I love embracing spooky season. I will watch a lot of horror films over October. I'll just take that opportunity to catch up, to be as one with everyone else. I will watch the best seasons of The Simpsons, Treehouse of Horror, Halloween episodes. I watch those all the time. I'll watch Halloween episodes of any of my favorite series. That will be my sort of comfort watching, as well as trying to fit in as many new horror films as I can. Reading, because I'm reading horror all year round, and I'll probably have read a lot of autumnal books early, so I can give more recommendations. The reading will just carry on as normal. Traditions for me is I do observe Samhain. So Samhain is the pagan festival for Halloween, and for that I will create an altar downstairs. I have a fireplace that is not in use, and that's the altar that I use to observe the different seasons, the changing of the season, the different pagan festivals that take place through the year. So I'll set up the altar with colours of the season. I'll bring in greenery. I'll bring in things that represent that final harvest. And I will also leave tributes on that altar to the dead, to the people who have passed. So I will put pictures of my deceased loved ones on there. I'll put pictures of my parents, of my dear friends. I will have a little tribute to my cat, my pet that I've lost. And there will be candles and things there. On Samhain night, I will leave an offering there. I'll put a glass of wine. I'll put some food. I will do a little candle ceremony, and I will do a burning outside. I have a little fire pit, and I will go and burn some stuff to mark the season. It's a lovely ritual to do, whether or not you believe in anything to do with witchcraft, to do with paganism, just to observe the season, to sort of say thank you to nature, and to remember your loved ones, because that is traditionally the time when the veil is at the thinnest, is on Samhain evening, and you can, whatever you want to put out to your past loved ones, wherever you think they are, they've more chance of hearing it. And it's a nice way of honouring it, whether you believe that there is anything beyond this world, this life. I'm not even sure if I believe that or not. But it's just a time that you can honour them and you can remember them. You can remember them with affection and celebrate them without sadness, I think. I will decorate my house. I will do a big pumpkin display outside of my house. Over here in England, people don't go all out on their Halloween decorations. A few houses do in my area, but I will get 5 or 6 pumpkins and I will carve them and I will put them out the front of my house on a hay bale. I'll put some stuff around it so trick-or-treaters know they can come to my house, and anyone, sometimes people just come and look at the pumpkins, but I do those up. And sometimes I hide behind a tree, and when people look at the pumpkins, I jump out and go, "Bah!" Because I'm a menace. If you could spend the night in a haunted location, where would it be? Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I'm trying to think. I should have looked at these in advance and thought of all the haunted places. Tempted spending the night. I don't really mind spending the night in haunted places. I'm tempted to say, was it Glamis? I always say this wrong. Glamis Castle in Scotland. Loved it because I remember reading about it in a book when I was a kid. I think I've mentioned this in another video, maybe. But yeah, a book about haunted locations, like the Osborne book of ghosts. And reading about that castle and just being mesmerized by it, all of these weird stories. Oh, definitely would like to stay there. There are some castles in Ireland, like Leap Castle, I wouldn't mind staying in. Another haunted location. I'm trying to think of something outside of the box because my head just goes to spooky castles and spooky manor houses. Yeah, I'd stay there. Absolutely. There's lots of haunted pubs in England where you can go and spend the night and have a ghost hunting experience. Yeah, not so fussed about that. Castles, I think, you've got more history in there. I don't think I'd be going into any catacombs. The catacombs of Paris. No, no. I think we've all learned a lot from the film As Above, So Below. That's not going to happen. I tell you, just a really haunted location most of us have done. If you've ever spent the night at sea, you're surrounded by ghosts. And sharks, hopefully. The same person, Daredevil Elegance, had said, if you could have dinner with 5 guests dead or alive, who would they be? One of them better be me. Of course. I'm often asked that question. I really don't think I've ever come up with a good answer, which is a great thing to say on a Q&A. I don't know. My head goes to famous people, to celebrities who I'd want to question, and then I remember, oh God, yeah, my parents are dead. I should probably invite them. But we've had a few dinners over the years. I think it would probably be people from across history. So it might be William Shakespeare to go, meh, you're here. Oh, tell me about your art. Let's find out all the rumors. But I'd probably invite people involved in conspiracy theories. I'd like to say that I'd invite Jack the Ripper so I could find out who Jack the Ripper was. Doesn't seem like he'd be a good dinner guest. Or she. Doesn't seem like they'd be good fun or wise to have in your house. So maybe not. A nice one might be invite 5 women who were accused of witchcraft and who did perish. Invite them round for dinner. They deserve a break. They would have had a hell of a time, so give them a good feed, as my mother would say. Give them a good feed. Let them chill out. And find out if they were doing any witchy stuff. That would be quite cool. What sparked your interest in crows? Have you always loved them? It was just fairly recently. I love animals. I do love animals, and I like macabre animals. And I've been walking in my local cemetery for many years now. And I saw the crows, and I think I just happened upon some videos on TikTok of people befriending crows, feeding them. And I just got into my head, okay, why not? Why not just go for a walk and see if I can befriend them? And I've always been that kind of person, certainly that child, obsessed with cats. Used to bring stray cats home or get them to follow me. I would always be obsessed with befriending them. I just loved them so much. And yeah, just with animals out in the wild, if I can sort of make a connection with them, very much observing that they are not pets, they are not mine to handle. But crows I just love. They're just, and the more and more I've interacted with the crows in the cemetery, the 2 crows who are regularly showing up and saying hello to me, I just love them. They're so cute, and it just gives me a nice warm feeling. What was the first book that got you into Gothic horror? It was probably a collection of Gothic ghost stories that I read as a child. So there was definitely a compilation, and they were the kind of compilation books that I'm not even sure that they were reputable authors, but I remember gravitating towards scary books when I was a kid, when those were the books that I naturally picked up. And I did find an illustrated copy of Dracula when I was younger, and I just loved it. I love the illustrations, I love the mood, I love the story. Vampires as a young girl, yeah, there was definitely an interest and a fascination there, and that hooked me in, and I ended up reading bits of Dracula, probably this adaptation for kids, which is probably inappropriate now I think about it, but would have read that and then wanted to read more ghost stories. And the older I got, I went back to the original Gothic books. I studied some of them at school. but suddenly found a fascination with them while I was developing my interest in film, in Gothic film, and then I wanted to go back to the source material. So there were a couple of questions about asking about my family. A few people asking about where I was from, because some people can hear the Irish accent. And do my family share my interest in the macabre, my family and also my husband? So I'm happy. I'm going to sort of compress things together here about a little bit about me, and not much is known about my childhood. Well, I'll tell you. I was born and raised in England. I've lived here all my life, but I was born to Irish parents. My entire family is Irish. Both my parents, all of my grandparents, my extended family are Irish. My blood is Irish. My family are from the north of Ireland, from Belfast and sort of around the Antrim coast. So that's why there's a bit of an accent there. So I grew up surrounded by my family, and I spoke in an Irish accent. I spoke in a Belfast accent, but I went to school in England. And I went to a primary school, a Catholic primary school, quite rough and ready in parts. And then I went to it's a slightly posh school. A lot of the time I speak in just an English accent. And sometimes when I'm doing my podcast, there's this natural inclination to articulate into this sort of English accent like this a bit more. That was kind of drummed into me at school. Not in a very cool way, but it's hard to shift it. But really my day-to-day voice wavers in and out of sort of Irish phrasing and English phrasing. Unfortunately, when I was quite young, when I was in primary school, I was bullied a lot for my accent and a lot of, well, for my accent, well, for being weird. I was a bit of a weird kid, to be honest. So didn't have the best time. But people would say very derogatory comments about the Irish and the fact that my family are from the north of Ireland. It wasn't fun to have people calling you a terrorist and people telling you shouldn't speak in an Irish accent because otherwise people think you're a terrorist. You know, you're blowing people up. Having that yelled at you on a school bus while teachers watched and listened and did nothing sort of gives you a weird thing complex when you're growing up. I'm sharing a lot here. It affected my accent. I would always sort of chop and change it. And it's quite strange that now I'm older, I'm much older, and my parents have long since passed. My accent sort of leveled out a little bit. That I didn't want to lose my Irish accent completely. But I was born here. I was born in England and I love England. So that's my family background there. I am married to a lovely man called Ben, who is English. He and I live together with our 3 cats, who you will meet soon. He's not a horror fan. He will watch horror with me, but he doesn't like it. I am the macabre one. I love all things macabre. He has a real appreciation for it and an understanding, and we talk a lot about the roots of Gothic literature and the roots of the macabre. We have great chats about it, of the meaning of it, and we have long discussions about film that are good fun. But he's not into horror. He doesn't like it when I put on horror films, and the few times I've sat down, I'm very selective of the horror films that I watch with him, because I don't want him to have a bad time, and also I don't want to put on something that someone's not going to appreciate. If I'm going to love it, I'm not going to subject you to something you don't like and to really go, oh my God, you should get it. Do you not get it? I will fangirl over certain films and just be sort of staring at his face going, you need to understand how important this film is. I think we've done that a couple of times after few glasses of red wine. And I'm like, you've not seen American Werewolf in London. Oh, mate. He doesn't like to be scared. He's one of those people, one of many people that I know who don't like the tension of being scared, and their inclination is to talk during the tense moments, during the scary moments, just to sort of like try to break the tension, whereas I'm like, no, stay silent, keep that tension going. I love that about horror. So yeah, I'm a nightmare to live with. I got a few questions from Banjo West. I'm going to answer as many of them as I can. There's some gems in here. If your bookshelf came alive at night, which book would lead the rebellion? Because there's quite a lot on here. There's a lot of books down here about feminism, about witchcraft. I think they would be leading the rebellion down here. They'd be like, and another thing to people. We've got a lot of crazy girl energy. So leading the rebellion, if it came alive, who would be the most unhinged? I think Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fito. Winifred, in that you could not trust her. She would be the most unhinged of anyone. Most other characters in the books on there have moments of humanity. Winifred does not. It's why I love that book. You would not want to be around her if that came alive at night. She would be the one that you'd worry about. Heads will roll. You'd have some great final girls and boys of that slasher energy who'd be just sort of plucky and ready for action. You'd have some very weird stuff from Cassandra Caw, some strange body horror strangeness, and fairy tales. Angela Carter's fairy tales would come alive, and they'd be quite hot, you know. So you'd be like, hoo hoo, yeah. It'd be mayhem, mayhem if my books came alive. I've got books about the history of magic over there as well. So there'd be just warlocks trying to make spells, or make spells that don't work, because they're writing stuff going, I think it's definitely worked. And I was like, no, it won't. Like the ones about Sleepy Hollow, the books that I have there, of having the headless horseman just bashing into stuff. Because if they came alive, like he's not going to get a horse out of here. Everyone's going to be really crammed into this tiny office space that I have. So good luck all trying to get out the door and navigating your way around this modest house in an English city where they're like, what's happening? The sun is very bright. Everything smells. Since you've always been a spooky kind of girl, what motivated your spooky reads and love of it as a younger person versus your reads and interests now? Have they evolved to different subgenres? Maybe. I've dabbled on this a little bit in my video about the horror films that changed my DNA. Growing up in an Irish household, we were obsessed with ghosts. We were obsessed with ghost stories and had a leaning towards the macabre and a real fascination with death. And that has always sparked an interest in me, an interest in death, without it being horrible or gratuitous. We're very comfortable with it, very comfortable with death and the macabre in our household. So we always told ghost stories. My parents were always telling me ghost stories. My dad was reading me ghost stories. My mother was making up ghost stories, and she was a wonderful storyteller. And so that was what we loved, and that was the fascination. So I would get any story when I was a kid that had a great atmosphere to it. That's what I wanted. I needed the scenery. I needed stuff that was spooky. I needed the castles. I needed the moonlight. I needed the shady figures. I wanted to escape into that world for some reason. And usually it was those sort of stories that were influenced by fairy lore and folklore. I liked that a lot. There wasn't a huge amount of kids' horror that I remember as a child growing up. I was reading all sorts of different things, but compared to when I got a bit older and point horror came out, getting the point horror books, yes, suddenly I had found my niche. Suddenly there was a bunch of books that weren't girly to me. Not a fan of the Sweet Valley High books that all my friends were reading, you know, cutesy, cool, lovely relationships. I didn't want that. I wasn't interested. So when I got point horror, which again, like, conforms to a lot of cliches in terms of, you know, male-female relationships in there, but suddenly there was a bunch of books for me, for my weirdness, and that sparked my love of slashers. I think I suddenly had all of these books that felt like slasher films, and I could enjoy them, and I just devoured them all. I was so happy to have found those books, and I will absolutely recommend Tales of Point Horror Club. Shelley Toy, she's on YouTube. I'm going to put her links on here. She's on TikTok. She does a book club all about the point horror book, and as I've been older, the more that I got back into reading, and more I decided I actually am going to focus on horror because I love it so much, rather than this sort of misconception that I'd had for years. Oh, you have to read something outside of the genre. You can't just stick to horror. That's too easy. There's better books out there. I was like, no, there's so much in horror. There's so much in this world that you can enjoy. So it has led me down pathways to find more gothic horror books now. I love female rage books. I love queer books. I love books that are examining the female condition in horror settings. I love grief horror books when they are done right. It's really been fun to sort of reignite my passion for horror books. As I said at the start of this, I'm going to have to pause this video and I'm going to come back with a different questions. I'm only telling you this because the second half of this video may look different. Maybe I'll be drunk. Maybe I'll have had a few margaritas before then, but who knows? I will be back with more. Hello, I'm back again. Brief interlude there that none of you noticed at all. But in reality, several hours have passed. I did have to go out and deliver my husband his costume to appear in a play, and then I had to sit and watch the play. So I have been sitting watching Shakespeare in the Park in quite hot weather for 3 hours. I know Lear is long, but there was no need. You can cut it. You can cut it. And I say this as someone who loves Shakespeare and has acted in Shakespeare. You can cut it. Yes, I've had one beer. I'm just kidding. It was a great show, but I'm here. I didn't want to lose momentum, so I want to carry on with the questions that you guys have sent through. There are quite a few. Obviously, I can't get to all of them, but let's jump back into it. Carrying on with the YouTube questions, before I get to Instagram, I am answering the ones that I feel able to answer. So there were a few from this user, Banjo West, and they sort of cover the same sort of thing. Do you think we read gothic horror to escape reality or to confront it in disguise, which I do feel very strongly about? Also, is part of horror's enduring power its ability to give a voice to those who feel quietly estranged from the ordinary? And do you think horror endures because it turns the complexities of the mind into stories we can face? I love those questions. And yeah, that's a big part of everything that you've written there. Is a big part of why I love horror. I absolutely do think horror is a gateway to addressing feelings, to confronting situations that in real life, in normal situations, would be too much to endure. Horror does present on face value a way of escaping reality, because horror usually involves the supernatural. It involves something really ghoulish, something out of the ordinary, something truly horrific that takes you out of your everyday comfort zone. Sometimes the weirdest and the wildest and the goriest for some people represent a way of escaping everyday life, which quietly can be terrifying. If you confront people with the harsh reality of their own life, of what they're doing, of what other people are doing to you, I'm sure people can imagine this right now without us going too deep and into therapy territory. You ask someone to confront head on the worst fears that they have, or things that are really hurting them or worrying them. A lot of the time people will push back. No, don't want to, you can't make me. But you present that in a outlandish, uncanny, bizarre way, as horror does. It can be easier to tap into those feelings and feel like, well, I'm a little bit removed, but I feel like I can identify with that. But I'm still at a safe distance, weirdly. You can feel a safety in horror. This is why horror and the Gothic is so powerful, and I wish more people explored it as a genre, because people do fall back on horror, that's all slashers and it's all ghosts and it's one note. It isn't. Horror gives you this route into such depth of feeling, such variety. It really gives you such a free rein to explore all manner of feelings. And the fact that horror often does give a voice to the estranged, and it was a huge part of what I studied at university. I studied English literature, and I studied film theory, and I did a lot on horror films, and I did a lot on the fantastic film. And horror is often features the outsider, the other. There's someone who was not right in the world, and it used to be that person, that thing, that figure, that representation had to be quashed, had to be quelled, as it was in Gothic fiction for so long. Get rid of the other, this other which could be inside of you or could be in society. And I think that's why a lot of us identify with horror and feel an affinity to it. You could have been subjected to all sorts of prejudices in your life, and so much horror deals with that. Or you could be someone who just doesn't feel like they conform to the sunshine and the pink glossy world that is around you. I certainly didn't feel like that when I was a kid, and horror was my way of feeling like, well, I'm at home with some people. Love those series of questions, thank you. Those are the deep, thought-provoking ones on horror. Have you done much traveling? Would you do a creepy hotspot road trip? If so, where would you want to go? Yes, I'm very lucky to have done a lot of traveling in my life. I've been to all manner of different countries. I've traveled a lot across Europe. I have been to America several times. I've been to Canada. I've been to Australia. I've been to Malaysia. I've been to Japan. I've been very lucky to see a lot of different places. Every time I go somewhere, abroad or at home, even if I travel around the UK, I will find the spooky place. I will look for a ghost tour. I will look for something that's haunted that I can wander down and find out some local legends about. Would love to do a creepy hotspot tour. I've been to a lot of places. The admin involved in that, I worry, because so many people do that so well. A few places that I haven't been to, I would like to go to the catacombs in Paris. I've actually not even looked into it, whether or not you can get down there. Given that I live in England, there's a lot of really great folklore in England, in Wales and Scotland and in Ireland. I would love to go to more hotspots closer to home. It's going to be easier for me to travel to. So maybe that will come. Maybe that'll come in time. Anytime that I go to anywhere spooky, I'm going to try and bring it to you a little bit more in these vlogs. Who would you be, the detective or the murderer? That's a good question. Obviously not the murderer, though. I'm not. No. It's evil. It's wrong. I very much need to state that for the record. No. I'd like to think I would be a good detective because of doing the Poisoner's Cabinet podcast for a long time. I can detect certain things. If it's set in a Victorian era, if it's a Victorian era set crime, story. Let's say that's it. I'm in a Victorian era set crime story. I'd be a great detective because I can spot all of the things. I'm assuming that I'd have a 21st century knowledge and I've gone back in time. Like, yes, I can take, well, they've clearly been poisoned. Stop saying that it was cholera, for God's sake. Murderer, no, I'd panic. I don't have time for that. It's the admin stresses me out. And I think that if I just had a snack and a sit down, I'd probably get over my ire. I probably would. It depends on the level of rage, but I mean, I can hold a grudge for a while. I would rather it was death by 1,000 cuts, you know, and the cuts would be me making just slightly passive-aggressive remarks to them every time we're in public. Who is your favourite final girl in a book or a movie? Ooh, final girl. In books, probably Mary from Nat Cassidy's Mary. I think, as a final girl, because she's a final girl we can all get on board with. It's not a traditional sort of series of people have been bumped off and she is the final girl in this one, but I think really her story, it's a twist on a final girl, given that she is a woman going through perimenopause or menopause, that she's endured a lot. The messaging through that book, I love that book. It is brutal and it is hard going, but loved Mary by the end of it and really appreciated how Nat Cassidy wrote her. Thought she was fab. So yeah, I'll go with Mary. In films, Pearl probably. Oh God, what's her name? The character in Ready or Not, the girl in Ready or Not, the bride. Her, played by I think Samara Weaving. She's brilliant. I love her as an actress, and I think she's fantastic. She absolutely earns her victory in that film. I wonder what scares you in real life. You're gonna like this one, guys. Balloons. It's balloons. Yeah, I do not like balloons. I developed a phobia of them a little later in life. And yeah, it's balloons when they're blown up. It's the fear of them popping. I can handle it. It's not a savage phobia. But yeah, I'm not a fan of them. It stemmed from when I worked as a waitress in a restaurant and we had a helium tank and you had these little balloons that you would blow up for the kids and they had nozzles on them and you would stand in this tiny room and then you would blow up the balloons and you had to do this for sort of parties. And I used to do that all the time, but there was one waitress, I swear to God, it was like a torture device. She didn't realize she was doing it and wasn't able to articulate it at the time for some reason. She would blow up the balloons and the helium with just such carefree abandon that they would swell to that you could see through this colored latex, like they almost burst, and several times they did, and it was torture for me, trapped in this small room. The sound was triggering enough, this harsh sound of the helium, and watching these balloons going, oh my God, is it going to explode? I hope some of you are feeling the stress, and I'm sorry if I've now passed on my phobia to you, but yeah, not a fan of balloons. I was at a festival recently. It was kind of an arts festival, it wasn't like a big music one. And one of these helpers, so sweet, she ran out and she had a bit that she had this balloon and she was trying to like encourage people to get involved. And she ran up to me going, I've got this balloon for you. And I was like, trying to batter away while saying, I'm sorry, no, not the balloon. I have a phobia. And she was going, I'm sorry, and still waving it in my face. It was amusing all round. Other than that, very little actually scares me. I'd like to think. Though when I am watching horror films in the cinema, I'm very triggered by sound, particularly loud birds. You know, sometimes in films, they'll have ironically be a crow or a pigeon or a bird swooping in really loudly to give you a sound shock. Out of my seat, jumping out of my seat. Jump scares, visuals, fine, absolutely fine, but not birds, weirdly. Would you ever write a horror book or any novel? Would love to. So wanted to be a writer when I was younger. Someday in the future, some spooky stories will come your way. A couple of people have asked about whether I do spellscraft or if I'm a Wiccan or if I'm into witchy stuff. I do try to follow the pagan festivals through the year, more as an observation and as a chance to sort of sit back and do a reset and be a little bit meditative around the way that the old calendar turns, the wheel of the year turns around you. I have books and books over there on witchcraft, on paganism, on the history of witchcraft, on spells and things that you can do in everyday life, whether that's folk magic, whether that is spellscraft. And I have several tarot sets and I will do my tarot every now and then. I have some brilliant tarot sets and maybe someday I'll share those if people are interested to see the different tarot sets that I have and that I use and that are powered up in different ways. I love doing tarot readings. readings. I'm learning about them all the time. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I have done tarot readings for others, but again, I find them very useful, tarot readings, for mindfulness. Again, just to reset your mind. Sometimes if your head is overwhelmed, just working with the cards, it's not necessarily, depending how people feel, going to tell you absolutely what's in your future. This isn't necessarily the spirits, if you don't want to believe that, coming down and giving you messages. Oh my goodness me, you've turned over this card, absolutely, that's what's in your future. It can sometimes just be a way of ordering your thoughts. These thoughts are often in your head anyway, and it's a way of bringing them to the fore and to give you some perspective. I am thinking ahead to October on this channel. Someone else mentioned it, asking, would I do something special or maybe a series for October up to Halloween? So I would ask if anyone's got suggestions of things that you'd really like to see from me through the month of October, maybe mini series that I can do, videos that I can do more regularly. Let me know in the comments. What are some of the plays you've been in, and do you have a favourite? I've done a lot of amateur theatre. My favourites are always Shakespeare. I love acting in Shakespeare. I've done a few that I was very proud of. I was in an outdoor production of As You Like It. It's the play where me and my husband fell in love, actually, officially. He was playing Orlando to my Rosalind. I love playing comedic Shakespearean characters. There's so much you could do with the language, and it was very enjoyable. It was very enjoyable to play this strong, flawed woman in a comedic Shakespeare play and to have such a laugh with it. I love doing that. I have been lucky to play Lady Macbeth. I've played Hedda Gabler, and I played some really good comedy as well. Those are the majority of the questions on YouTube. There may have been some that I have missed because I'm scrolling through and there were quite a few on there that I didn't feel I was able to answer this time. But now let's get on to the Instagram questions. Do I know of any good books featuring ghost dogs, black shucks, devil dogs? That's a really good question. I'm racking my brains now. You'd think I'd have looked at these beforehand and prepared my answers. Of course I haven't. The Black Shuck is a great legend, though. Tangent as ever. The Black Shuck is a legend that is linked to Suffolk and Norfolk. Mainly Suffolk, I think. I have been to the church where it was said the Black Shuck struck. There is a legend, I'm going to compress it here, that the Black Shuck is this huge dog, this huge devil dog, that came and it terrorized people across Suffolk. It sometimes goes into Norfolk as well. The legend sort of crosses the border. And there was a church where there was a storm raging, and allegedly people ran inside and they barricaded the doors, and the Black Shuck was trying to get in, and there are claw marks, scorched claw marks across the door. I have been to that church. I have seen the claw marks on marks on the door. I was doing a bit of a ghost hunt with my darling friend Emma from Real Life Ghost Stories, me and Nick from the Poisoner's Cabinet. We went there and we were doing some recording in the church inside. It's a very eerie church, and we recorded this for our Patreon channel. And inside that church, a noise happened in the audio that I couldn't explain. And it's hard to explain on here even. It was very weird, it was very random, but that's just an aside about what I know about the Black Shuck. In terms of books with devil dogs in them, The Hound of the Baskervilles is the first one that comes to mind. Hound of the Baskervilles. Werewolf books, When the Wolf Comes Home, Nat Cassidy, again, Nat Cassidy, great writer. But yeah, other devil dog suggestions, let me know. What's your favourite spooky place attraction to visit in the UK? Really, in the UK, you can go to any old city and there will be great spooky ghost stories just to a penny to so many places. In Canterbury, where I live, there's so many great ghost stories. There's so many ghostly tales and things going on. In Northern Ireland and along the Antrim coast where my family are from, there is a place called the Vanishing Lake. It is a piece of water where there is a road going through it, and that lake can vanish and it can disappear. It's tidal, but my parents used to tell me ghost stories about the Vanishing Lake, and it terrified us. And then they took us to Ireland and they showed us it, and I have pictures of us next to it. I have a picture of it that I have on my wall of my father standing next to it, and my sister Emily, who's Emily Dragonfly Tales, great storyteller. I will put her information on screen and in the links below. She is a fantastic storyteller, and she does a podcast for children. If you've got kids or if you're just interested in folklore, please get her on your radar. But she also does adult storytelling, and she does this amazing ghost story around The Vanishing Lake. Most mind-altering what the fuck book have you ever read? It's probably going to be House of Leaves, and I'll resent it because I am persisting with House of Leaves, and it is completely insane the way it is written, the way that the text is written, the way that the pages are laid out. Of course it's mind-altering. It is absolutely is going on with it. In terms of like another book that's kind of mind altering that I enjoyed, I don't love mind altering books most of the time because you end up getting frustrated unless there's a really good payoff to it. I do really like Cassandra Cole's work, and I thought the Library at Hellebore that I read this year was very good in terms of what is going on, but good horror, good sort of lavish gothic body horror, cosmic thrown in there. I am not a fan of We Used to Live Here. That sort of, oh, the house that isn't really a house and it's kind of all got different multi-levels. I feel like those books are always trying to be a new The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which is a great book. I like what the fuck books that are bizarre, but they have a good linear thread rather than working on a principle of like, this wall might not really be here. That annoys me after a while. A book you think everyone should read, a history book. Really, it would be non-fiction, and it would be just get a decent history book, learn your history of the world, not the history of the world written by white people about white people. The more that you can read by diverse authors, by authors outside of your comfort zone, I think probably that would be my answer. And I know that sounds very worthy, but read a book that is not by someone of your race, of your background, telling their story. If there's a horror book everyone should read, I'd probably say The Silent Companions, because I love that as gothic, and it's a great example of the books that I love. I'm not going to say that's my number one book of all time, but Silent Companions by Laura Purcell, love it. And I think it's a very good story as well as being frightening and original. Most overrated horror novel in your opinion? Oh my. Overrated of all time is difficult to judge because time heals all wounds. So I do think about modern books that everyone raves about and that are really at the top of the hype books. So I'm going to mention a recent hyped horror book, a fairly recent one, Brother by Anya Iborn. No. That is a book that has been so popular on Book Talk that is everyone's going, oh my God, for a WTF read, for a completely disturbing, oh my God, it'll destroy you. It's such a good book, people say. And I must caveat, if you love that book, you are right. You are right. People are entitled to love it and to adore it. I really don't think it was a good book. I think it was shock value. I think, yes, it was disturbing. It was disturbing for disturbance's sake. I don't think you learned anything from it. I don't think it added anything new to a serial killer genre when it could have, when it had potential to do something really interesting, and it fell into cliches. That is my general feel. I am not a fan of that book, and I apologize if you love that book and you think it's wonderful. There are some recent hyped horror books that I think are good, that I liked. I don't think that they are worth the full hype. I've mentioned We Used to Live Here, which was very much hyped last year. Don't think it was worth the hype. I see a lot of books that are hyped as brilliant feminist horror when they are simply entertaining. They're not adding anything new. I think that The Lamb by Lucy Rose is a really good horror book. I think it had flaws in it. I think it had technical errors in there. I would read her work again. I would recommend the book, but for everyone who's sort of saying what a work of feminist horror it is, I don't think it was. And that may seem like I'm being really harsh on that book, and I still think people should read it. I don't like it when people mislabel anything to do with women in horror as a work of feminism without doing the due care around it. There you go, that's me on my little soapbox. If you could live as a character in one of your fave books, who would it be and why? Living as one of the girls in Cackle, that seems damn cozy. That seems cozy and snuggly and power. All of these are terrifying. I don't think I'd like to live as any of these people. Maybe the little rat person who makes the biscottis and legends and lattes. He seems like he's having a good time. I could do that. I could make biscotti. What was your favourite childhood book? The book I remember really delving into was Matilda by Roald Dahl. Loved it. It was my first proper Roald Dahl novel, being immersed in that world and loving the language of it and loving the characters. Absolutely adored it. If I were a tea blend, what flavours would you contain? Tea. Tea. I don't like fancy tea. I don't mind a jasmine tea every now and then, or a mint tea to settle the stomach. I don't know what's in tea. Black like my soul. A couple of people have asked, is there a book that I love that may surprise people? I don't think there's anything that would surprise people, because read what you want. Would anything shock you? Oh, I'm an astrologer, so of course I'm curious. Your sun sign and your big three. I forget these. I was born under a wandering star. I'm a Leo with Virgo rising. I will say I've had a birth chart done. I went to a psychic fair. Love a psychic fair, by the way. Love it. Take my money. And someone was doing a birth chart. And I gave them the details. Couldn't remember anything. But they also said, you know, this is indicating where certain things have happened in your life. And then she went, huh. And there was an area going, well, these are all pointing to trauma. And it was like a huge arrow was pointing to one spot on the chart. Have you had any trauma? Well, a lot of people I know have died. Yeah, like, great. Well, it's really good that the birth chart really arrowed towards that. By the way, trauma's there, but we're not going to do anything about it. I found that funny. Do you have trauma in your life? Yeah. Funnily enough, didn't need the birth chart to point it out with a big arrow. I should get my birth chart done properly by someone who isn't trying to traumatize me. Is YouTube what you do for a living? If not, what do you do? YouTube at the moment is part-time. I am a part-time content creator, and that's probably about 60 to 70% of my time now. And I also provide freelance content creation and content management for freelance clients if they need it. The main part of my job is the Poisoner's Cabinet podcast. That's been going for about 5 years. That's me and my co-host Nick. I record and write half the shows with Nick, doing them in tandem. I do the production and the editing, and I put it out and make sure that it is maintained. We have a Patreon account channel that we have a very good number of subscribers on, so I'm doing content on there as well. I maintain the social media channels for that, and yeah, that's a successful podcast, and that generates money. And then I have my content creation work, which is around spooky books, spooky films, all the things you see here. So YouTube I started this year, and it's me creating the videos, editing the videos, doing all of the social media work around that. I have my TikTok account, and I try and do more creative content on Instagram because that's growing too. So I have 2 brands of my own, and then I also have freelance clients as well. So at some point it would be lovely if the content creation, my stuff, was my full-time job. I like to make sure that I'm covered on all bases. I like to do several things at once to make sure I've got different income streams coming in. All of that income goes through the tax man, goes through all of the usual channels. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. It can be very stressful. You constantly feel like you need to keep creating stuff all the time. I am recording this on a Saturday night after being very busy. I know I've got a holiday coming up, and I'm thinking, what can I do to keep producing content that will, yes, generate money, but also keep people happy? So it's a lot of work, and it is rewarding in the end. I do love it. I really, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. If people are ever interested in knowing more about the behind the scenes of what it goes into creating YouTube, whether it's equipment, whether how I put it all together, I'm happy to do information videos, because that's how I learned to do this. I learned from watching YouTube videos, from watching other creators putting out how-to information guides on there. So if ever anyone wants some information, I'm happy to provide that. Do you track what you read on an app or a list for later reference? Yes, I do. I have 2 to 3 different systems. I have a spreadsheet. It is a basic sheet where I log every single book that I am reading. I will log the books that I've started to read, and I have those. I put in notes into that sheet while I'm listening to it, and I'll put the star rating I think it's worth, and then I'll do my final review written in there. That is a brain dump of my notes, of my thoughts, stuff that will pop up during the reading of it, and my overall feelings about it, so I can refer back to it. Really, I'm a mood reader when it comes to my TBR and what I'm going to pick up next. I will, whatever's in my head and my heart that minute, that's probably what's going to get read. I track what I'm reading on Goodreads as well. I have not put my written reviews on there. I do a star rating. I will put a little bit of text if I've rounded up or rounded down, because it doesn't let you do half stars, of course. And that's where you'll see what I'm currently reading, what's on my want to read shelf that I might also use to track, and what I've read. I've had to backdate a lot of stuff and go in there, and it's not a complete list of all the books I've read because there's a load missing in there, because I only really started to update my Goodreads in the last sort of 6 months, 6 to 8 months, really. I will post reviews of books that I really liked on my Instagram as well. I saved those for the books that I have really liked because I don't like doing an entire grid post for a book that I hated. I don't mind talking about books that I didn't like, and I will do it in my wrap-ups on here and on TikTok as well. I might just go, nope, absolutely not, if I want to have a bit of a rant. What I haven't done at the moment is added my written reviews to Goodreads because I'm sort of obsessing over them too much, probably. I start to write them and I worry that they're not going to be lengthy enough. I'm thinking of just adding micro reviews on there, just so you can get a gist of what I liked, what I didn't. There you go, short, sharp, sweet. It's another job for me, so that's why I'm holding off a little bit. Quite a few people have asked me what's my favourite book of all time. I would like to ask you, what's your favourite hair of all time? Impossible to pick one? Yes, there we go. I can't choose a favourite book. There are so many, and my feelings on them change daily. There are lists of books that I really, really love that will probably be up there forever, but there's a collection of books, and sometimes they chop and change, and there are books that I've read this year that are, yeah, I think are wonderful and I will be gabbling about to people. So generally speaking, you know, on this channel, you'll see the scariest books that I've read. I will keep adding suggestions of books that I've loved, but I cannot pick a favourite book, and I don't think anyone should have to. Don't feel pigeonholed into going, well, this is my favourite book. Because you say a favourite book and people absolutely love, certain people love to go, oh, I'm going to judge you entirely by that being your favourite book. I might do that too. You know, certain books are mentioned, I go, oh, why? If you could only read one book for the next 10 years, which would it be? It's a good question. I think it's different from what would be your one favourite book. 10 years is a long time, but what is a book you could read over and over again? It's probably a cop-out to say a book is the complete works of Shakespeare, because there's a lot of plays in there that you could have fun, and I could act them out, you know, in my own space. If it's 10 years, I'm going to be practical and probably choose like a huge, chunky fantasy book, you know, one I've been putting off, something that I can sink my teeth into. I mean, I'd hope I'd enjoy it, but one that's been really well reviewed. I'm not going to say The Wheel of Time there's enough of you out there all reading The Wheel of Time. I can't be part of this cult. The Blade itself is up there by Joe Abercrombie. I could read that. I've been meaning to read that. That seems fun. You did ask about the cats. Well, let's have a brief cat interlude. I have 3 cats in total. Tallulah, who's 18 years old, and I have Frank and Medea, who are both 2. They've just turned 2. This is Medea, also known as Dia or Dee. She is a teeny tiny black cat. She will always be small, but she is the sweetest, loveliest girl in the world, as well as being a fearsome hunter. She was a private sale by chance. I found out that there was a litter of black kittens from someone. I went on a whim and I met Medea and instantly fell in love. There was just something about her from the start. She was so brave, so smart, so bright, and so tiny. She will spend all day exploring the neighbourhood, running in and out for cuddles and for dreamies. Another thing about Dia, she sleeps like the dead. This is just how I found her in my study. Next we have Frank. Frank was adopted from the RSPCA. He was part of a litter that had been abandoned in an old house, but I was able to rescue him and bring him home. I adopted him the same day I got Medea, which was just a good coincidence because then he could grow up with another kitten to play with. Frank is a traditional tabby, and just have a look at those markings. He is absolutely stunning. And he is a beast. He is the biggest of the cats. He is huge, he is chunky, he will always be a chunky boy, but he's an absolute softie. He loves a cuddle, he loves to run around, has the highest pitch mew, if you can. I failed to get it on camera because he's just sort of looking going no. Loves to eat, loves to gallop sometimes around the neighbourhood, but generally is very happy curled up on the sofa and just staring at us with those big beautiful eyes. He's such a fluffy baby. And this is Tallulah. Tallulah is 18 years old and still going strong. She is a Bengal cross as far as I know. I adopted her from the RSPCA as a kitten. Lula is not a pedigree, so was dumped in a box beside a busy main road. So thank goodness she was found and I was able to adopt her. She grew up with my 2 other cats who have since passed, and she is an old lady. She's cranky. I imagine her as kind of a waspish woman who lives in New York. In the evenings, she insists upon this particular fluffy fluffy blanket, must be put on your knee. She is going to sit on your lap and you are not allowed to move. She has her system, let her do it. Lula has grown to tolerate the kittens. She did not want them playing with her or sleeping next to her, but Frank is so big and he loves her so much that he does manage to snuggle up to her, and she's just about allowing it these days. And as a special treat, here are the two youngest ones when they were kittens. Them as tiny, tiny little balls of fur, and they have grown into absolute beauties. Hope you enjoyed meeting the cats. I'm sure there'll be room for more cat footage in the future. There we go. Those are all the questions that I could possibly get to for the Q&A for hitting 30,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who has sent in questions. If you've wandered onto this channel and have never seen me before and are now watching a full Q&A with me, then I admire your persistence. So please subscribe. There will be more craziness. You seem like fun. Let's hang out. Once again, thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of my subscribers, to everyone who has supported this channel, who has been commenting, who have been sending kind messages. As ever, feel free to drop in the comments any suggestions of videos you'd like to see from me in the future. Do you want me to delve into the history of horror a bit more? Do you want to know more about a certain subgenre of horror? Do you want particular book recommendations that are going to hit a particular sweet spot for you? Or do you want me to start planning the October content? Because I feel we could do something pretty special with spooky season. Stay spooky, bye-bye.